A day that Washington Sundar will remember very fondly. What a story in Pune. 7 wickets for Washi, his best first class returns, let alone his test returns. As India bowled New Zealand out for 259, they themselves had to endure a tough first hour or so with the bat, 16 for 1 at stumps. Sanjay Manjrekar on ESPN Cricinfo Matchday reunited with me. Very good evening to you, Sanjay. An hour before stumps, I was thinking this is India's day. What a great response after Bengaluru. But seeing what happened in that hour, the loss of Rohit Sharma, is it still a test match that was even for both teams after day one?
Uh, I'm just trying to sort of visualize what is likely to happen on day two. And I think India may be in a pretty good position because it's not quite that pitch yet. There is obviously a bit of turn more than Bengaluru. It's not one of those rank turners where you feel, more than 200 runs will be tough to get. And considering that New Zealand will focus more on their spinners and not, the three seamen that they had in the last game, that trouble in batters. Even with Rohit gone, I think India is in a pretty good position. And that was a day one performance from Washi, so that was actually exceptional bowling. And you can't put that down just to the surface that we have here in Pune.
Let's talk more about Washington Sundar. I'd like for you to first take me through your own emotions as the day evolved from the time the news came, where we had enough social media debate. Oh, how can you drop Kuldeep Yadav? That's harsh. To then Washi striking after Ashwin, to then Washi dominating the day's play. What were your emotions like watching him bowl through the day?
Yeah, first, a piece of advice is when you follow sort of social media, just follow my Twitter handle because you'll get the right stuff there. Um, and I said at the time, sounding extremely boastful, that it was a very a decision that made a lot of common sense because on a pitch that's likely to turn, a pitch that's going to be abrasive, all you need is accurate, fast spinners. I mean, spinners who bowl the ball quickly, and that is when you don't need the artistry of Kuldeep Yadav. So it made a lot of sense, and Washi has the advantage of being the quickest now, because he's bowling regularly at 95. He's got a high release point and he's pretty accurate. So the right kind of bowler. So horses for courses, really. And India seem to now have spinners for the kind of course, turning course the pitch is going to take.
What accounts for the success Washington Sundar enjoyed? Do you see a marked improvement in the off spinner Washington Sundar, given before this? It's 6 wickets in 7 test matches. He hadn't a seven for in first class cricket. He's got the reputation of being a serviceable all round spinner. But this was a quality off spin display on day one, like you mentioned. What's changed, if anything?
In his first spell, when the wickets weren't coming by, I started to wonder whether he's a pure enough spinner for India to bank on him so much because he's got so many other strengths, and that has a lot to do with him playing for India. His batting always comes into discussion when India are picking a spinner or they want depth in their batting, a bit like Shardul Thakur when he's picked. So I thought maybe this guy may not be as good as a pure off spinner is that you get at the first class level. And you're right. And I saw his record as well. He's got 2 or 3 4 wicket hauls, no 5 wicket haul. But I thought the pitch suited him and he kept it very simple. Interestingly, Ronak, it's a pitch where it's not turning a mile yet. And you
Hmm.
saw a lot of dismisses where the ball pitched in the right area, good length area, high release point. You get a little bit of maybe a little more than guys who are short statured. And the ball was just turning enough. So we saw a lot of bowls today as the match goes on. As the turn gets a little more pronounced, you'll see the balls missing the stumps. So that is what actually worked for Washington Sundar and that line that he bowls.
All right. Ashwin did trigger the start of the wickets, though. An important spell for him early on, or important impact early on, given he had a rare, forgettable home test for the great R. Ashwin. Thoughts on his first impact on the game today?
And also getting another off spinner where he heard the team management saying that we need another off spinner to get the ball going away from the left hander. So he would have thought inside, in his heart that am I not enough? Although Jayan the other has played with Ashwin in the past, but Washi is almost like very similar to Ashwin, although Ashwin has a little more guile. But I thought, I mean, over the years, I've seen Ashwin, despite how much bowling he gets, sometimes gets dropped. He just comes out and does his thing, and he continued, bowling well. I thought it was Devon Conway's wicket was something he didn't expect because it was slightly short delivery, one down the leg side. But it was a matter of time. The moment the pitch was going to turn in this fashion, Ashwin is always your bankable bowler. But today, there was less pressure on him because once he got those wickets, the rest were taken care of by Washi. So Ashwin back in business.
Just stepping aside from the day's play, perhaps for a moment, sometimes we think of what after Ashwin, given the stage of his career that he's in, and of course, there's plenty of life left in our Ashwin. I say that at the top, but with this kind of performance by Washington Sundar, last Indian off spinner, as Yash tells me, not named Ashwin to take a Test five for Harbhajan Singh back in 2011 in Cape Town. We've gone a lifetime almost without really seeing a clear-cut successor to Ashwin. It's one innings and one performance, a very good one, but is Washi now potentially front runner in that succession plan?
I think both points are a bit early to make. I think on this platform, this is the second time that I'm hearing about Ashwin. We looking beyond Ashwin. And to be very honest, in the series against Bangladesh and the one before that, and even in the first test, although the returns weren't great, I just don't see a bowler whose end is near, or you start sort of looking out for a replacement yet. So I think it's a little premature, especially in Indian conditions. I think he'll continue to have enough for quite a bit of time to come. Washi has started off well, but it is just one performance. What you need really, although it seems like it's easy to turn up and bowl on, turning pitches, and then you wonder why foreign spinners don't get as much from the pitch. So you need to have certain qualities that Washi showed, which is quick, accurate, and just a little variation to get those wickets, because the pitches are always going to help. So yes, by just one sample that we've seen in this game, there is promise there.
It certainly breathes new life into the prospects of Washington Sundar's own Test career. Let's focus back on the day's play. Assessment of the way New Zealand batted, whether the innings of Conway and Rachin Ravindra might prove to be even more valuable as the Test match progresses. They look quite comfortable until they got out. But what was your overall pros and cons assessment of how New Zealand batted after winning the toss?
I think what I saw was two batters who had runs in the earlier Test match play not the best that they've done. We saw their best in the last Test. Conway looked a lot better than he did. He just got the runs, and Rachin as well, was masterful. They didn't look convincing, but they had the confidence to, go out there and get runs on Indian pitches, which is what they did. You've got to say Conway a little loose shot, in the sense that he was getting forward and then saw the ball was quite short and the ball just gripped and turned and he followed it. But he didn't look convincing right through. But the important thing is that he was out there getting runs. The guy to talk about is Rachin. I'm just amazed by how a young player like him, who's hardly played in India, comes and plays like this. I mean, he's a guy who the Indians would be really worried about, because when he's there, he's scoring runs. He's always thinking runs. So that wicket and that ball from Washi was the one that will be an important moment in this Test, because had Rachin stayed on, I'm not sure about all the others that followed him, in the series, how long or how much they will contribute. But your key player is Rachin, and they got him out at the right time, because had he stayed in a little longer, he would have got those runs very quickly, and that could have been the difference between the two sides. Who knows?
All right, let's move to the one wicket India did lose, the important one of Rohit Sharma. And now, with 7 innings in this home season, Sanjay, less than 100 runs, averaging under 14. Is there any cause for concern for the Indian captain's own batting form?
I like the 50 that he got in the second innings of the last Test. It looked good. But clearly, first innings, when there is a little bit in the pitch, that same, we used to talk about Rohit Sharma's loose defense. Remember those days at the start of his international career, where he would not take a step forward and he would just react with the bat. That is starting to happen. And when he had that fantastic series in England, he was doing the same thing. The front pad never goes down the pitch as much as the Virat does, but he was able to leave balls outside the off stump. I think they have worked out a way to bowl to Rohit Sharma. If you see, he was made to play that ball, and an attempt to play a ball that he had to play, that movement that which he doesn't get too much, down the pace, then he's always reacting with the bat. That happened in the first Test as well, where there was a DRS situation where he's reacting to the movement with the bat, with the pad not there. That makes him a little vulnerable when there is a little bit in the pitch and the ball is hard in you. So yes, the defense more than anything is a concern because temperamentally this guy is brilliant. He just maybe has to tighten up his defense a little more and things should be okay. And I saw that happen in that second innings of the last test.
Yeah. So while we look at these wickets, and there are a couple now, including one against Bangladesh, and we think, oh, that's a Jaffa, it's unplayable. Actually, there is some work for Rohit Sharma to do, pointing out his history and maybe receding into bad habits that he must avoid.
Yeah, even that inside edge bowl that he had against the left arm spinner, who was it in the last game where the ball just rolled
Just
on?
Patel,
Just
yes.
Patel.
Yeah.
That also wasn't Rohit Sharma getting right on top of the ball. It was a ball that just came back in, but because he wasn't right on top, to be really sort of hard. Coaches do that. The people will have sympathy. The player will say, that was unfortunate. The ball rolled onto the stump, but the coach will tell you, had he got on top of the ball a little more, then you wouldn't have allowed that ball to have that kind of, effect where it hit the inside edge, because had he been further forward on top, would have got the middle of the bat. So when things are not going your way, you have to be able to trust your defense, and this is defense more than anything is letting him down a little bit. So yeah, a lot of work to do for him uh, as far as his defensive batting is concerned, because that was an area that he had just mastered in the last 3-4 years in tests.
Assessment of this Pune surface?
Interesting, actually. Clearly, I think it might go on to become a little more difficult. But as I said, it's a very, very, fascinating surface. The first time I've seen it being a turning pitch, we've seen the ball explode, from a surface, not dramatically, but the amount of bowls that you saw, especially with Washi and then Southee as well. So it's just doing a little bit and not bouncing too much for the spinners, just turning enough for the ball to beat the bat and not sort of miss the stump by a mile. So it is that kind of a pitch. And maybe not the kind of rank turner that we've had over the years in home series. And that's why Washington Sundar's performance has to be seen in that light, that this wasn't the kind of lion mind that O'Keefe for Australia had. This was an Indian pitch with a bit of turn. So it was a fantastic performance. It's not a rank turner, but may potentially become that. And you might see less bowls as a result of that.
Quick judgment on the selection calls from both teams. New Zealand going an extra spinner, even though Matt Henry had a niggle, and India making 3 changes. Akash too had a tough first morning.
This was inspired selection, just this thought, and just the way Gautam Gambhir, you rarely see that kind of an expression on his face. It seemed like he was the guy who was calling for that additional, support for Ashwin with the off spinner and the ball beating the left-hander, and he did exactly that. It's amazing. He beat Rachin to get the off stump, get him bowled, and then he beat a dangerous Mitchell Santner. So he did his job. So inspired selection that. Akash, I had mentioned an out of the box selection would have been, if you think there's nothing here for the seam bowlers, why don't you play 4 spinners? Like, Ben Stokes would have thought in that fashion. But India, you could understand, went with Akash, the informed seamer as opposed to Mohammad Siraj. New Zealand did one smart thing in Bangalore. That wasn't a pitch that wasn't going to turn. It was an Indian pitch that was likely to turn, but they went for quality in their bowling and had 3 seamers, and Matt Henry had a huge part to play in that win. So maybe they might miss Matt Henry's experience and his seam support. Because Mitchell Santner, although I love him as a cricketer, his record at the test level is not great, and Glenn Phillips still untested here. So huge reliance on the 3 spinners, and whether they will rise to the occasion, we'll have to wait and see.
Of course, Matt Henry not available, I guess, because of the injury concerns, but your point is valid that they might miss the effect of Henry. Quick prophecy of what you expect happening on day 2. Do you sense this surface is going to get harder to bat on, or will India bat any better? Are they looking at a big first innings lead, or could this be one of those tests where 280, 300 cancels out 250 and we'll be interested? It'll move pretty quickly.
This Shubman Gill is back. And you can see, the couple of shots that he played. You should see the value that is there when he's in the team. Yashasvi, Jaiswal, Virat Kohli, looked good in the series in one innings. And there's an informed Rishabh Pant, there's Sarfaraz Khan. So I see this Indian batting being able to manage the New Zealand attack with just two seamers and a pitch that's not like Bangalore, a lot better. So my prophecy is that India should be able to bat well enough to give a pretty decent lead to New Zealand and thereby piling on the pressure. So very early days, and this is just my reading of what's likely to happen. I think India will hold sway in the first inning and gain an advantage, just the kind of batting talent India have and the conditions that we have.
Sanjay, thank you very much for your time and your thoughts. More from you at the end of day 2 on ESPN Cricinfo Match Day, but always a pleasure.
Same here.